You're watching Organized Breaking News.
But here's the unusual part right now. We know that the teachers' unions kept the kids out of school classes as long as they could, but this administration is blaming the last administration. Listen to this, Senator.
Right.
So let's step back to where we were not too long ago when this president walked into this administration, how mismanaged the pandemic, the response to the pandemic was. In less than 6 months, our schools went from 46% to open to nearly all of them being open to full time. That was the work of this president, and that was the work of Democrats, in spite of Republicans not voting for the American Rescue Plan. Again, schools were not open. The economy was shut down. Businesses were shut down. Every Republican Congress voted against that money. That is the reality. We had to do this on our own.
And Senator, of course, it was, the coronavirus started during the Trump administration. So the Trump administration pretty much shut everything down. But then one by one, states started coming back online with their kids. It was the teachers' unions that were talking to the Joe Biden administration, the next administration, about keeping kids out of the classroom as long as possible and all the mandates and stuff like that. Then they wound up with $190 billion from the American Rescue Plan that she was just referring to for the schools, and a lot of that hasn't even been spent yet, and now our kids are going the wrong direction in reading and math.
Well, if you believe what the president's press secretary said, you'll never own your own home. I mean, it's just not true. The American people watched it. Our schools were shut down by woke local school boards at the urging of many teachers' unions, and President Biden never said a word. I mean, in some cases, he encouraged them. He just stood there, sucking on his teeth. So it's a little bit of a revisionist history. And he could have talked about that last night. He could have talked about his plan to help our kids regain the knowledge that they lost as a result of their own government shutting down the schools supposedly in the name of science. We probably lost 20 years of progress that we had made in our public schools, and we haven't heard a peep out of this administration. Congress sent $200 billion to the schools for remedial work. You know what we've heard from many of the states, not all, but many of them? Nothing. Zero, nada. The money's still sitting there. The president hasn't said a word.
I got some numbers for you. Only 12% of the money has been spent. In New York City, they took $4.9 million. They put it towards a No Stopping New York campaign. In Montgomery, Alabama, they have also done very little with it. They tried to stop an anti-vaping, and they bought anti-vaping detectors. Also in New York City, they put together the money for $12 million for expanding the controversial restorative justice educational discipline practice to all middle schools.
That's not about
so we got to do that. So they gave you guys, not you, but the rescue plan went out to the states and they said, do something responsible. And the states, if they did spend it, it seems irresponsible, and most of it just left it there. How unbelievable is that he's taken a bow for a plan that's been abused?
Well, look, what I wish the president would do is stand up and say, look, teachers matter. This isn't a criticism of teachers. I can't name you the first 6 presidents of the United States in proper order, but I will never forget my first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and 6th grade teacher. This is not the fault of our teachers. It is the fault, in many cases, of teacher unions, and it's the fault of woke local officials. And I wish the president would say, here's our new rule: no excuses, schools. I don't care how old you are. You're not getting out of the 3rd grade until you can read. You may be 16 years old, by God, but you're going to still be in the 3rd grade learning to read. We're going to find out, I wish the president would say, which of our teachers can teach and pay them. And we're going to find out which of our teachers can't teach and either tell them to teach them how or tell them to find a new line of work. And we're going to use that $200 billion to help our kids catch up because government made a mistake in shutting down these schools. It was down, bone deep down to the marrow, stupid, but we're going to fix it. But he doesn't do any of that.
Senator, I think it's so insulting that they're trying to rewrite history. The teachers' unions were actually fighting the private schools who were open and saying they needed to shut them down too. And by the way, 195 million Chinese students were in school while our kids were on Zoom. Anyway, thank you for joining us this morning, and we appreciate your wisdom, both as a politician and a former teacher.
Thank you, sir. I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.